Hello and welcome to Gravitas Plus. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay. Ukraine is at war with Russia. We know it. And we are sitting thousands of miles away from Kiev, watching the news on TV and mobile phones, thinking, thank God, it is not happening to us. Well, I bear bad news. This war, ladies and gentlemen, is bleeding all of us. Do you have a car at home? What does it run on? Oil or gas, I'm guessing. Taking that car out will become more expensive, courtesy the war in Ukraine. You see, nearly 12% of the world's oil comes from Russia. It is among the three top players in the oil market, and this country is now at war. On a normal day, Russia would export nearly 5 million barrels of crude oil. Now that the Kremlin is at war, what happens to those shipments? Goes without saying, they're affected one way or the other. Next question. What happens when Russian oil stops entering the international market? The demand and supply equation goes for a toss. The market is already dreading this. And this is the result. Crude oil is hovering around $100 a barrel. The day Russia invaded Ukraine, oil touched $105 a barrel. That was the highest jump in 8 years. Soon that record was broken. Now you and I do not buy Brent crude. So why should we bother about it? I will tell you why. When refineries start paying more for oil, they charge more from the distributor. The distributor charges more from the petrol pump. And the next step is you. You end up paying more at the petrol pump. And this is just one part of the oil story. When oil prices jump, transport becomes expensive. Running a car, truck or flying an aeroplane becomes expensive. The effect is cascading, meaning everything becomes expensive. Your fruit seller will start charging you more because he paid more to the supplier, who in turn shelled out more money to bring the fruit from the warehouse to the fruit seller. Moral of the story, when oil becomes expensive, everything becomes expensive. From your local fruits to your imported goods. Next question. How expensive exactly? Let's talk about India. The Reserve Bank of India says every $10 rise in crude prices adds about 0.5% to inflation. Basically, the devastation of Ukraine means inflation for you. Every bullet fired in Ukraine adds to the rising price of Brent crude. Why? One, the market is uncertain. How badly this war will disrupt oil supplies, we do not know yet. Two, the war has isolated Russia. There is no communication confirming that Russia's oil exports will be unaffected. Three, sanctions. Every bullet fired adds to sanctions on Russia. As we speak, Russia's banks have been sanctioned. Their assets abroad have been frozen. Some of these banks have also been cut off from SWIFT. It stands for the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunications, SWIFT. It is basically a secured interbank messaging system. The West has removed Russian banks from it, leaving Russian banks handicapped and with no way to communicate securely with banks outside of Russia. Will this affect oil supplies? Well, here's what experts say. While the Russian energy market has not been sanctioned yet, all other restrictions placed on Russia are likely to reduce the amount of Russian oil flowing into the world market. Number four, the industrial boycott of Russia. Western companies are offloading their stakes in Russian oil companies. British energy giant BP, for example, has offloaded its near 20% stake in Russia's state-owned oil company Rosneft. Then there is Equinor. The Norway-based energy company said it would start divesting from its Russian joint ventures. Now, none of this is going too well with the market. The reactions are strong. Oil is shooting through the roof. India imports 80% of its oil. Oil has been at an average of 95 rupees per litre for the last week. Experts say it could shoot up 5%. 12 to 20% in the worst case scenario. Whatever the number, an imported inflation is what this war will mean for you. A survey polled 27,000 Indians from 361 districts. 42% of respondents said they will not be able to tolerate an increase in oil prices. They said they will be forced to cut down on discretionary spending. The situation will be worse for Europe. European countries depend heavily on Russia for gas. To put it in numbers, nearly 40% of Europe's gas comes from Russia. A lot of these pipes run through Ukraine. A war between these two countries is bound to disrupt supplies. Something we've not spoken about so far, Ukraine's role in the energy market. Did you know Ukraine has the second biggest known oil reserves in Europe? It remains unexploited. The situation will become dire if the West sanctions Russia's energy market. That would mean cutting off nearly 10% of oil supply, crude oil supply. What are governments doing to shield you from this crisis? The US is planning to release oil from its strategic reserves. The announcement was made by President Joe Biden during his State of the Union address. The government of India says it is closely monitoring the energy market. India's Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas has put out a statement. Allow me to read it out for you. India is committed to supporting initiatives for releases from strategic petroleum reserves for mitigating market volatility and calming the rise in crude oil prices. You see, Ukraine and Russia supply more than just energy. Ukraine, for example, exports half of the world's sunflower oil. Currently, the war has shut down shipping. Exports are blocked. Ships are avoiding the Black Sea. Ukrainian ports have suspended operations. Port city Mariupol is under attack. Odessa, which is home to one of Ukraine's largest container terminals, is also under attack. This war has disrupted the global supply chain of sunflower oil. And soon kitchens around the world will be suffering. Once again, take India for example. More than 70% of India's sunflower oil is imported. Ukraine sends 170,000 tons. Russia sends 200,000 tons. The total trade is somewhere around $3 billion. Reports say 380,000 tons of sunflower oil shipments from the Black Sea region to India are stuck. Reports also say the prices of edible oil could go up within weeks, meaning cooking at home will be more expensive. Ordering in will also be more expensive. Ukraine also supplies corn. In fact, it is one of the world's top 5 corn exporters. In 2019, Ukraine traded 35.9 million metric tons of corn. Russia too is a big player. Together with Ukraine, it accounts for 19% of the world's corn supplies. This war will have a ripple effect on the cost of corn syrup, corn flakes, even popcorn. Ukraine, by the way, is China's biggest corn supplier. Then there is wheat. Russia is the world's largest exporter of wheat. It accounts for 20% of the global exports. Ukraine supplies 10% of global wheat. In 2021, 70% of Russia's wheat went to West Asia and Africa. This region will soon have to pay more for flour, pasta, pita bread, pizza, basically every wheat-based product. Egypt, Turkey and Bangladesh will likely be the hardest hit. They are the biggest importers of Russian wheat. India is safe on this front. It has a central pool of wheat which is around 24.2 million tons, and it is twice the buffer and strategic need. But Europe is up for trouble. It depends heavily on Ukraine for barley and rye, and the war has disrupted supplies of these staples. Well, that's the thing about an interconnected world. Anything goes wrong anywhere, and the rest of the world suffers too. The war in Ukraine has put a lot at stake. Energy supplies, gold, precious stones, coal, fertilizers, precious metals. The war has put all of these commodities on the front line.